Today, I've got a list of my 10 biggest blind buy regrets on physical media. So let's rock this. Hey everyone, how you doing? Welcome back. I'm Fuzz, and today I'm going to be discussing some of my biggest regrets in blind buying movies on physical media. I've got a top 10 list here for you. Now keep in mind, when I say blind buy regrets, this doesn't necessarily mean that they're all bad movies, although there definitely are some bad ones on the list here. But some of them are actually quite good. They just weren't the best fit for my taste, my personal taste, or my particular collection for any number of reasons. So when I say blind buy regrets, I just mean that if I had to do it over again, I probably wouldn't add that particular title to my collection because for whatever reason, I will probably never watch the movie again. Now, I'd mentioned before that I'm very much into curating my collection and only buying titles in certain genres that are of particular interest to me. There are actually quite a few genres out there that I'm really personally just not all that interested in terms of collecting, right? In terms of actually wanting to own these titles. So I think that actually kind of makes curating a little bit easier for me just on an organic, natural level. Because I just wouldn't naturally gravitate towards those films anyway, right? So I don't feel any kind of pressure to like own those films or add those films to my collection. That said, I'm also the kind of guy who loves to blind buy quite a bit. I love discovering films for the first time on the format that I purchased, especially if that format happens to be 4K. I will occasionally stream films to preview them just to see if I want to own them. But most of the time, if I think I'm going to like a film, then the chances are I'll just buy it on physical media for my first viewing. And this is especially true of 4K because I just love discovering and watching films that are new to me for the first time on 4K. If there's a film that I'm interested in seeing, I'd much rather experience a brand new 4K restoration of that film than just some crappy stream on Tubi that may only be like, 720p or even 480p. So given that I do tend to like to blind buy quite a bit, it stands to reason that naturally I'm going to get a dud from time to time, and that's what inspired this video. It doesn't happen too often for me because I usually do my homework and I just trust my instincts. And usually I will not blind buy something unless I have a pretty strong sense that I will enjoy the movie, at least to the point where I don't regret adding it to my collection, right? So I do a lot of research ahead of time before I blind buy something just to make sure that it's going to be something that I'm going to dig, whether reading reviews or watching trailers or whatever. I try to get a strong sense of whether this is actually the movie for me or not. And by doing that, it does cut down on the instances of blind buy duds and regrets. Now, I never really feel like that much regret. I say blind buy regrets, but maybe that's a bit of a strong term because I never really feel that much regret. I mean, it's not the end of the world if I end up with a title that I don't really care for. It only bugs me insofar as I don't want to pollute my collection with any bad titles, or rather, titles that I didn't personally like very much. Maybe that's a better way to say it. So today I've got a list of my 10 blind buy regrets, and then I will have a few honorable mentions as well. So without any further ado, let's just get right into this list. Okay, so starting off at number 10 here, and this is a very loose ranking. Don't put too much stock in where I place each of these titles on the list. I mean, really, it could just be a list of 10. I don't even know that I needed to really rank these titles, but I decided to go ahead and do it anyway. But just understand, it's don't trip out too hard on the actual ranking, okay? It's more the fact that these titles are on the list. That's the important point I'm trying to make, right? If the title's on the list, it's a blind buy regret, and that's what matters, right? Okay, so starting with our number 10, we have The Gambler from 2014. This is a Mark Wahlberg film that, I definitely did not care for this film. It's got some notable people in it. You got John Goodman here, you got Brie Larson, Jessica Lange is in this. And but the thing I didn't like about this movie is Mark Wahlberg's character. I had a hard time getting past his character because really his character had really no redeeming value or qualities whatsoever. I just did not like this character. He was a deeply unlikable character. And I don't know, maybe that's a testament to Mark Wahlberg doing a good job playing this character the way he did, right? But I couldn't watch it. I couldn't get into it. I mean, I watched the whole movie, but I just had a hard time getting into it. I kept waiting for Marky Mark's character to maybe do something that I might be able to get behind, but it's just every step of the way. The guy was just a supremely unlikable character. There was really nothing in this film that resonated with me at all. And so, yeah, I regretted it. Upon first watch, I was like, okay, that sucked. So, yeah, The Gambler, if you've never seen it, well, I mean, your own mileage may vary. This may be the type of movie that some of you like, but personally, I did not like it. And I don't think I'll ever be watching this one again. In fact, I'll probably get rid of this Blu-ray at some point in the future, but I definitely don't see myself watching this one ever again. So there's really no point in having it in my collection, right? So yeah, number 10, The Gambler. Okay, next up for number 9 is a horror movie or a horror thriller that I know a lot of people in the horror community actually really like this movie. And I liked it too, but not enough to own it, right? I mean, I should say not enough to want to watch it again. At least I don't think. I'm kind of on the fence with this one. I don't think I'll ever really watch this one again. But it's entirely possible I could feel differently in 5 or 10 years or something. So who knows? So maybe this is one I should hang on to. But I ended up buying the Black Phone on Blu-ray. Ethan Hawke, and here's the thing, I love Ethan Hawke too. I'm a big Ethan Hawke fan. I think he's a great actor. And I thought he did a fairly good job with this particular role as well. He was pretty creepy. And, I don't really have a whole lot of anything bad to say about this movie. It was a decent movie. It's just the kind of movie that I don't know if I could ever watch it again. And not because of anything bad about it. It's just because I don't know if it was that interesting to me, I mean, it's still an entertaining movie to watch once. Like, that's how I see it. Like, I'm glad I watched it. And it was entertaining while I was watching it. But there just wasn't enough there to make me feel like any strong need to really ever return to the movie. I could definitely see this being a one and done movie for me. And that's, as of right now, that's kind of what I'm thinking, but who knows? I may eventually watch this one again someday. But if I had to pick it up over again, if I had to buy this again, like if I had streamed it ahead of time, and before buying it, if I had streamed this on wherever it was streaming, I'm not sure I would have actually been in any hurry to pick up this Blu-ray. So that's kind of how I measure that. Like if I was going to do it over again, would I still buy this, knowing what I know about the movie now? And the answer is probably not, at least not anytime soon, right? It certainly wouldn't be a priority for me. But it's not a bad film. It's a decent film. It just wasn't for me in terms of ownership, right? It just wasn't the kind of film that I really felt like I needed to own. But I didn't dislike the film at all. I thought there was some very good stuff in it and some redeeming qualities. It's just not the kind of film that has a lot of high rewatch value for me personally. But I know there are a lot of people in the horror community in particular who are fans of this film, who did like this one. So if you happen to disagree with me here, feel free to weigh in the comments section below. I love hearing from you. Maybe you can hit me to something I might have missed or something that would cause me to want to go back and maybe give this one another try. But as of right now, yeah, I think I'm good having watched it once. So yeah, so for my number 9, The Black Phone. All right, next up for my number 8 is a movie called Ghost in the Shell, Scarlett Johansson. Now, this is one that, honestly, I haven't even to this day seen the whole movie yet. I think, and that's part of the problem, is I don't have really any interest in seeing this. I think when I first got it, I watched like the first half hour, and I just couldn't get into it. It just seemed really sterile and just didn't have any personality, didn't have anything really attractive about it that made me want to stick with it. And so I turned it off, and I figured, I'll probably come back and watch the whole thing later some other time. But I never have been in the mood to do that. I haven't found myself in the mood to go back and actually try to watch this whole thing. And I think I can honestly say that if I had to do it over again, I wouldn't be picking this one up on 4K. This is one of those films that I think I bought it early on when I was first getting into 4K. I think it was on sale for like really cheap, like 10 bucks or something. And at that time, I was super excited about 4K, just looking for anything on 4K, especially if it was cheap, but might be a film that I might appreciate on 4K, then I picked it up. I have a few movies like that where I didn't really put a whole lot of thought into the purchase before I made the purchase. So this is definitely one of those ones I would probably skip now. But when you're new to 4K, sometimes you make some purchasing decisions that you wouldn't normally make just because you're really excited about the format and you just are looking for things to watch in 4K, right? Well, that's kind of what this was. And but yeah, I'll probably sell this at some point or get rid of it at some point. I don't really see myself holding on to this one. And I don't really see myself actually going through and watching the whole thing at any point. I just kind of didn't have any interest in it based on that, you know, that half hour or whatever that I watched. So yeah. So for number 8, Ghost in the Shell. All right, moving on to my number 7 choice, and this is actually a good film, so I'm probably going to get a little bit of heat from some because I know there are fans of this film out there. I'm talking about Sicario. It is a really good film. However, I just don't know if this is the kind of film I'll ever watch again. And that's why I would call it a regret. But I don't regret watching it. I think it's a good film. You got Emily Blunt here. You got Josh Brolin, Benicio del Toro. And Emily Blunt essentially is an FBI agent that gets recruited for this task force to go after a drug lord. And, you know, there's all kinds of intense stuff in this film. And it is a really well done film. However, I could tell, you know, when I was done watching this, I was like, okay, I'm glad I watched it. I'm glad I saw that film. But this is not the kind of film that I felt I needed to have in my own collection, right? Because I don't know if I'll ever watch it again. So, but yeah, good film, Sicario, but probably not the best choice for my own personal collection, just in terms of long-term ownership. For my number 6, I've got another one here that might be a little bit controversial because I know a lot of people really like this one. I'm talking Joaquin Phoenix and Robert De Niro in Joker. This is a film that I think it's pretty good. It's not a bad film. I don't think this is a bad film. I thought it was well done in terms of, you know, for what it is, right? Although really heavy King of Comedy vibes. Remember that old film from the early 80s? The old Robert De Niro film, King of Comedy? Yeah, there's a lot of that in here. I think you can make the case that there are a lot of similarities, a lot of parallels between that film and this film. I'll be honest, I'm not the biggest Joaquin Phoenix fan. He just doesn't do that much for me as an actor. In fact, he's actually on my actors that bug the shit out of me list, which one of these days I think I'll have to share with you guys. Let me know if that's something you'd like to see from me at some point. I have been chewing on this idea of creating a list video of just going over all the actors that bug the shit out of me. And so if that sounds like something that you guys would be interested in, let me know in the comments below. But anyway, it was a decent film. I kind of had a hard time with Joaquin Phoenix's portrayal in this, you know, his laugh and all that. It was just uncomfortable and kind of cringy, and it just didn't do much for me. And I mean, I understand what they were trying to do with this film, and you know, it's definitely worth watching once. But this is another one of those where I was like, okay, I'm glad I saw it, but I probably won't watch that film again. And I have zero interest in the sequel that's coming out, which I guess is like a musical with Lady Gaga. Zero interest in that, zero. So yeah, this is one I probably wouldn't buy again. If I had it to do over again, I probably would not have added this to my collection. I probably would have just streamed it and been done with it. So yeah, Joker for number 6. For number 5 is a Vinegar Syndrome title, and you had to know that there was going to be at least one Vinegar Syndrome title on this list, right? Because well, let's face it, sometimes Vinegar Syndrome has a lot of blind buy regrettable type movies, right? But this is Red Sun Rising, Don the Dragon Wilson. You know what? This was, I took a chance with this. It was on sale. I think it was one of Vinegar Syndrome's daily deals during one of their sales. And so I got it for a pretty inexpensive price. I didn't really even look into Don the Dragon Wilson all that closely before buying this. I was just experimenting, trying something new, and I thought I'd give Don the Dragon Wilson a try here and see what I thought. And I gotta say, I did not really care for Don the Dragon Wilson. So this will be my first and only Don the Dragon Wilson movie. I don't plan on watching any of his stuff moving forward unless he happens to be in like a supporting role in something else I'm watching. But in terms of lead roles, yeah, I don't know. There's something odd about this guy. I don't know, it's just something kind of strange about him. I can't quite put my finger on it, but I tried to watch this thing. I don't even think I got all the way through it. I think I probably got, I don't know, maybe about halfway through, and I turned it off. It just wasn't doing anything for me, and I was like, okay, yeah, this is not for me. And so I kind of regretted it, you know, but at least it comes with a nice little VSA hard box, Vinegar Syndrome's Vinegar Syndrome archive releases, where you got the bottom loading VHS. And I don't know if you got any, if we've got any Don the Dragon Wilson fans out there, maybe you guys would appreciate this more than I did, but it just didn't do much for me. So yeah, so for my number 5, Red Sun Rising. By the way, if you're enjoying the content on this channel, do me a favor and please consider subscribing to the channel. And don't forget to activate that notification bell as well, so you can always be alerted when I'm posting videos that you might be interested in. Also, don't forget to like the video as well. It really does help with the algorithm and the channel's visibility out there on YouTube. Thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate it. All right, next up for my number 4, this one kind of pains me to say a little bit because I'm a big John Carpenter fan, right? But this is a John Carpenter film that I actually do regret picking up. I'm talking about The Ward from, when did this come out? 2010? You'll notice that most of the movies on this list are later movies that came out, you know, post 2010 or something, and maybe there's a correlation there between, you know, shitty movies or Blind by Regrets and later movies. I don't know. But this was a tough one for me because I really wanted to be able to like this. I love John Carpenter, huge fan of John Carpenter's work. But this one was pretty disappointing, at least what I saw of it. Now, I'll be completely honest. Another one I didn't even get all the way through. I don't know how far into it I got, maybe, I don't know, 35, 40 minutes maybe, but I could not get into this movie at all. And when I was looking at the credits, you know, the normal, usual John Carpenter participation just wasn't really there. You know, usually with a John Carpenter film, you expect to see, you know, maybe he had something to do with writing it, producing it. The score might be John Carpenter. But in this case, it seemed really clear that John Carpenter was just a hired gun for this film. It's like he had no involvement in the film, or at least it seemed like he had no involvement in the film other than just being a hired gun. And it saddens me that this is John Carpenter's final film, or at least to date, unless he does another one. This is the last film he put out. Amber Heard, first of all, that was kind of a turnoff, right? Amber Heard. But yeah, just the fact that no classic John Carpenter score, he didn't write the movie. You know, it's almost like he kind of phoned this in. It didn't even really look like a John Carpenter movie to me. I mean, I saw a few little things here and there, but I just felt like this was just like not a John Carpenter movie, right? And it just didn't have what I was hoping for. And I wasn't expecting this to be like some great movie. I'd heard a lot of people say, hey, don't even bother with that one. That one sucks. Well, they were right. But I was trying to be open-minded and get as much John Carpenter as I could, try to kind of complete my John Carpenter collection, or at least coming close to it. And so I thought I'd grab this one. At the time, I had never seen it. So I was like, well, I'll take a chance on it. There's a lot of times other people don't like movies that I do sometimes. You know, some of the other John Carpenter movies that people have kind of ripped on, I didn't mind them too much, you know, like Village of the Damned, or Ghosts of Mars. I mean, it was pretty cheesy, but I could handle Ghosts of Mars, right? This one, yeah, I just couldn't even handle it. I turned it off, and I haven't gone back since. And now when I see it sitting up there in my collection next to my beautiful John Carpenter releases, well, I actually won't even put it there in that portion of my collection. I actually have a kind of a dark corner over here where I keep all my duplicate Blu-rays that I've upgraded to 4K, or just titles that I really wish I hadn't purchased, that I don't really want polluting my collection. I call that my corner of shame, right? Where and they're not all shameful titles, but any titles that I kind of wish I hadn't picked up, they tend to end up in that corner, which is like close to the floor, a shelf close to the floor, way off in the corner where it's not as easily accessible as, say, the rest of my collection, right? So that's what I do with titles that I don't like or that I regret picking up. I tend to just make them go away because I don't want to see them. I don't even want to see them as part of like my main collection here. Like when I'm browsing back here, I don't want to see these titles like this. I want them to go away and kind of disappear. So I stick them in my corner of shame. So yeah, number 4, John Carpenter's The Ward. All right, for my number 3, we've got a Jean-Claude Van Damme film called Enemies Closer, directed by Peter Hyams. I love the director. I love Jean-Claude Van Damme. I've got, quite a few of his other films, but this one I was disappointed in. I was disappointed in specifically Van Damme's role and performance in it. He plays the bad guy in this one, and I had a hard time kind of wrapping my mind around his performance. It just didn't do much for me. It wasn't very good. At least I don't think it was. Now, I'm a big fan of Peter Hyams. He's done some great stuff. The movie Outland, or 2010, the year we made contact. He's done a bunch of other stuff. The Star Chamber. I love The Star Chamber. That's one we need on Blu-ray, by the way, or even 4K. I would love to see the Star Chamber get a 4K release. All right, I'm getting off topic here, but the point is, I'm a fan of Peter Hyams, the director. He's done some great stuff, and I picked this up thinking, I bet this one will be pretty decent as well. I know he also did Sudden Death, that Jean-Claude Van Damme film, which is much better than this one, right? I like Sudden Death a lot more. In fact, I think of all the Van Damme movies that I picked up, this is the only one that I actually kind of regret picking up. Right? It just didn't do much for me. It wasn't as entertaining as I hoped it would be. And again, Van Damme playing the bad guy the way he does, I just kind of found it to be a little cringe and kind of a turnoff. And so I don't think I'll ever watch this movie again. And if I had to do it over again, I definitely would not have picked this title up. So if you haven't seen it, keep that in mind. For any Peter Hyams fans or Van Damme fans out there, if you haven't seen this one, you may want to try it before you buy it. Try and find some place to stream it or something before you buy it, because it may not be your cup of tea either. So yeah, number 3, Enemies Closer. All right, moving on to number 2 here. This film sucked. It really did. I'm talking about Mercenaries. And I think it's just because it was cheesy, right? This came out in 2014. And the reason I bought this film is because it has Cynthia Rothrock in it. That really is the only reason I bought this film. It looked like it might be fun. And I'm kind of new to Cynthia Rothrock, so I've been kind of poking around out there. And if I see something really cheap with her in it that was a newer film, I was looking to see her do something a little later. I hadn't really... I haven't seen that many Cynthia Rothrock movies. So I was curious to see. I noticed this was like a later career role for her, so I was kind of curious about it. But that's literally the only reason I bought this. So let's see, who else is in this? Bridget Nielsen, Vivica A. Fox, Zoe Bell, Christina Loken. The only thing I ever remember Christina Loken from was Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines. That was her, right? Playing the other Terminator. Yeah, so anyway, it's a... this is another one of those films I tried to watch. I got, I think, probably about 45 minutes into it, and I turned it off, and I meant to come back to it, but I still haven't made it back to it yet. And I mean, I think I got this for really cheap. I think it was like $5, and that's part of why I grabbed it when I did. It was one of those, Amazon sales or something. But yeah, I didn't even get all the way through this. The acting is terrible. It's so bad. And, you can even tell they're using like props for knives and weapons and stuff. There's one scene where a knife is being held to someone's, throat, right? And you look at the knife, you can see the rounded edges of the blade. It looks like a toy prop knife or a rubber knife. I mean, it's blatantly obvious that's what it is. It doesn't even look convincing. And, I realize that, these things are low budget. They got to work within a budget. But man, the weapons have to at least look convincing. They can't look like people are walking around with a bunch of toys, right? If it looks like a toy in the movie, then the movie's going to come off as a little more clownish. Am I right? So, low budget, not very good acting. And there were just some things that took me out of the movie, like those prop knives and other props and things. So, it took me out of the movie, turned it off, and I was like, yeah, I probably wouldn't have picked this one up if I had to do it over again. So, yeah, my number 2, Mercenaries. Okay, so my number 1 might actually be kind of controversial. For horror fans out there, I have heard horror fan after horror fan praise this movie, sing this movie's praises. And, being someone who just got into horror just like, I don't know, about 4 years ago, I didn't really become a huge horror fan until just the last few years, right? And so I picked this up. Everybody always talked about this movie. It was one I had never seen at the time, and I was kind of late to the party on. And I watched it and I didn't like it. And I'm talking about Sleepaway Camp. I know this is a popular movie among many horror fans, but for some reason it did absolutely nothing for me. I just thought this movie sucked. Well, for one thing, I figured out who the killer was very, very early on. It did not take me long at all to figure out who the killer was. Now, I didn't see the twist coming, and it's a good twist at the end. I didn't see that coming, but it was still, aside from that, I felt like it was fairly predictable. And there was something odd about the tone of the movie that just didn't resonate with me, that kind of rubbed me the wrong way, right? The whole thing with, the backstory on these characters and, how they got to that place. I just had a hard time with that. It was really creepy. And I don't mean creepy in like the kind of creepy you want to see when you're watching a horror movie, right? I mean creepy in a very negative way that's kind of off-putting and makes me not really want to watch the film ever again. And that's pretty much how I felt when I finished this. I was like, all right, I don't understand why people make such a big deal out of this one, horror fans. I didn't quite get it. But, again, your own mileage may vary as a horror fan, right? There's just something about this movie that I could not vibe with, but I know a lot of people out there really like this one. So, and I've even heard, people like the sequel too, Sleepaway Camp 2. I've never even seen that. After not liking this, I didn't even bother moving on to the second one. In fact, I've heard some people say they do like the second one even more than the first one. Who is Pamela Springsteen in that? Yeah. I think so. And but I wasn't going to move on to that because I didn't even like this one. So this is one I still keep in my horror section, but, I don't know that I'm ever going to watch this again. I'm pretty sure I'm not ever going to watch it again just because I had such an off-putting experience watching it the first time. But if you horror fans out there think I'm missing something about this and think you can kind of turn me around on this, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What am I missing about this? What made this such a horror classic in so many people's minds? Because I definitely just did not like this movie at all. So Sleepaway Camp for my number 1. Okay, so that wraps it up for my top 10 biggest blind buy regrets. But I also have some honorable mentions here. Not too many, just a few that I want to kind of try to breeze through pretty quickly here. The first one is Terminal Invasion, little Bruce Campbell action, directed by Sean Cunningham of course, Friday the 13th fame. This one wasn't very good. And I think I even mentioned this one when I first picked it up. I think I brought it up in a collection update video. And I think I even said at the time that if I had to do it over again, I would not buy this one again. I was hoping the Sean Cunningham and Bruce Campbell factor, that those would be strong enough to carry the film, right? That there might be some good stuff in here, but it's just really cheesy. The special effects are really bad. And, you know, Bruce Campbell, even his performance in this, it was okay, but it wasn't anything that really did that much for me, right? So yeah, if I had to do it again, I probably would not be picking up Terminal Invasion from Kino Lorber, but I've got it now. I don't really ever see myself watching this film again. I mean, it's possible in 10 or 15 years I might, you know, come back to it and pop it in just to see if I still feel the same way. But chances are I'm never going to watch this again. So yeah, I kind of wish I hadn't picked it up. So Terminal Invasion. Next up, we got a 4K disc here that I picked up. Liam Neeson movie. I thought it was a different movie than what it was when I bought it. And I had streamed this one and didn't like it as much as I thought I would. Cold Pursuit on 4K. I was on a Liam Neeson kick. I was picking up the Taken movies, right? And some other stuff. And I picked this one up thinking it was going to be a little bit of a different kind of movie than it was. I actually got this confused with a different movie, and I can't even remember what that other movie is. And I was thinking I was buying the other movie, and it ended up being this, which I had actually seen before I bought it. I had seen it on a stream. I just didn't realize it when I bought it. So, but I think the thing I don't like about this is it's kind of a dark comedy. And I'm not always the biggest fan of dark comedies. And I think the tone of this movie is why I didn't care for it, because of that kind of dark comedic tone. It was just kind of a strange movie, and it wasn't particularly entertaining. At least I didn't think it was. So yeah, Cold Pursuit, not a good one in my book. But I don't know. Again, your own mileage may vary, especially if you're a Liam Neeson fan and you do like dark comedies. I don't know. Maybe you might dig this, but it didn't do much for me. So yeah, Cold Pursuit. Next up, I've got a Zack Snyder film here called Sucker Punch. Now, this one's kind of an odd one for me because I actually think it's a pretty decent film, especially in the first part of the film. And then as it gets into the story, it's pretty interesting. The reason I don't like this film is because of the ending of the movie. It just kind of ruined the whole thing for me. And it made me not really want to revisit this film. Now, there's a chance I may still revisit this at some point because there are some redeeming qualities. It does have some redeeming qualities. It's just not that great, right? Once you get to the end. And yeah, the end really kind of bugged me. I just did not like the ending of the film. So that's why it's on this list, and that's why I will probably not watch this anytime soon. You know, it's not something that I really felt I needed to have in my collection now, having seen it. But I was on a Zack Snyder kick, so I was just like, oh yeah, another Zack Snyder movie I haven't seen. I'll pick this one up, and didn't quite work out as well as I'd hoped. So yeah, Sucker Punch. Another one, it's in the honorable mentions section because it's kind of a hard one. It's kind of a conflict, an internal conflict I'm having with this one because it's a Denzel Washington film. And I think I've said in the past that I don't know if Denzel Washington has ever given a bad performance in anything. And I still stand by that, right? For those who don't know, Denzel is probably my all-time favorite actor. I love Denzel Washington. But I did not care for this film at all. I'm talking about Roman J. Israel, Esquire, right? Denzel did a good job with the film, with the role he was giving. So my problem is certainly not with Denzel. It's just that I didn't think it was a very interesting story. And it's not the kind of movie I would normally pick up for myself. It didn't do much for me. I thought it was kind of boring and didn't have enough, I don't know. It just didn't really entertain me that much. And so that's always, of course, my big thing. I got to be entertained first and foremost, right? So, but I mean, I guess you could make the case this is kind of an interesting character study, you know, a little bit with Denzel's role here. So I still stand by Denzel is a great actor and he did fine in this, but I probably wouldn't have purchased this one if I had seen it before I bought it. Yeah, this is not one that I felt like I really needed to own, but I do. So who knows? Maybe I'll come back to it in 20 years or something. Also, this one probably will be a little bit, this might be a little bit controversial for some of you guys. Because I do think, again, it's another one of those cases where I think it's a good movie. It's just not the kind of movie that I would normally choose to own in my collection. I'm talking about 13 Hours, Michael Bay, his movie on the whole Benghazi thing. And yeah, it's a good movie. This is a good movie, and that's why I put it in honorable mentions, because I may come back and watch this someday in the future, you know, in 10, 15, 20 years maybe. But I'm not normally into this type of movie anyway. You know, war movies or movies centered around conflicts and wars like that. Usually I don't get into too many of those types of movies. Sometimes there's an exception, but yeah, normally not my kind of thing. And of course, this is a true story. Which makes it all the more interesting, right? But yeah, this was a one and done for me. I'm glad I watched it. I thought it was a good movie, but I'm never going to watch this movie again. It's just not, I'm not that interested in the subject matter, to at least not enough to come back and watch it again. I'm glad I saw it once. It was a well done film, and definitely kind of surprised me, a little bit different than what you would expect from Michael Bay, right? It was a well done film, but it's not the kind of film I'll ever watch again just due to the subject matter. So yeah, 13 Hours. Okay, so that wraps it up for my biggest blind buy regrets. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. I always love hearing from you guys. What do you think of my choices here? Hopefully none of my choices pissed anybody off out there, but if you've got some different thoughts, or you want to kind of like try and turn me around on any of these titles, maybe you can offer something that might give me a new perspective on any one of these films. I'm totally open to hearing that, but I always love hearing from you guys. I always love chatting with you guys in the comments. So make sure you leave some feedback down below one way or another. Also, don't forget to like the video and subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Thank you so much for watching today. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you soon.